Yes, friends, let's take a look at a small project today, a little one, about creating a dog tag, specifically a 3D dog tag with layer by layer material removal. I have all sorts of these little templates. Again, these templates, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, are available in the training material for beginners, for those who purchase it, so you can use them without any problems. So we'll create a new template today, and we'll likely add it to the training material. We'll use a template based on our standard dog tags, which we use for sales and distribution, specifically as consumables for engraving. I cut the same dog tags out of titanium, so this can be done for those as well. Here, we're removing the internal template backing, the grouped one, and we'll create something new today. Control Z, let's move it to the side. Then again, something new is just something old that's been proven. Our task is to create a square. Let's make a standard one, 10 by 10, for example, let's say. We'll rotate it 45 degrees. Next, since the height was 10, well, we can basically compress it at least 3 times. So 14 divided by 3 gives us 4.7. Well, let's just do 4 first, and then we'll see about adding the 0.7. Control Z, unlock the lock, value 4. There. Well, in theory, that should be more than enough. Next, here's what we'll do. Cursor, right-click, convert to curve, adjusting the points. Here, for the points, I'll select convert to curve. Convert to curve. And here, we need to make it smooth. Okay, Control Z. Same thing here. Convert to curve. And here as well, convert to curve. Well, and click the smooth button here. And the same here, smooth. This gives us a little droplet like this, which we'll use later to create our background. So, what's next on the agenda? The plan is to make a certain number of them, but we need to set them at specific angles from the start, so to avoid issues later, it's better to angle them right away. I'll probably make them a bit narrower now so the droplets are longer. So let's make it 3. 3 by exactly 14, just to make sure we don't have any hassles or complications at all. There we go. I'll go ahead and tilt the droplet at a slight angle. Let's say, for example, let's make it about 10 degrees to the right. That should work nicely. Now our task is simply to duplicate it. So we go to transform position, move to the right. But the size of our tilted droplet is 3.250. Let's make it 3. Let's make it 4. Apply. Well, in theory, I'm happy with this option. Set the value to 4, click apply. Great. So our first droplet template is almost ready. But there's a small catch. The width of these droplets of ours must match their height for everything to work out for us. Let's measure them right now in this wonderful way. The height doesn't quite match. I'll use a messy method that I don't like, but in theory, we can use it too. So for these purposes, we can do this. You see, our width is greater than the height. So later on, this will play a negative role here. Or we just leave it as is and don't worry about it. Press Ctrl G, group. Also, move it by the same width. So we had a movement of, I believe, 4 millimeters, if I'm not mistaken. So again, we click transform, 15.6. Let's move it to 16. Okay, Control Z. I should only moved one element, not all of them at once. Okay, one element, apply. And rotate it 90 degrees. 90, and let's go ahead and mirror it. Well, in theory, purely hypothetically, I think it'll work, but there's still a slight misalignment here that I'm not happy with. So what should we do? Rotate it a bit? Not 90, but let's say rotate it 10 degrees more, like we had before. Okay, let's try again. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, once more, to 100 degrees. And mirror it. There, yes, that's it, exactly what we need. And now the task is just to duplicate it, so everything should be as simple and logical as possible. We can make the first row by accounting for the change in our size, that is, the size of our elements. Again, we take our endpoint here and take the endpoint here. But since the elements are slightly different, these distances will be, well, a bit difficult to measure, although it's possible in theory. Let's measure with a small square like this. It's a silly way, of course, but it works. And we look for the endpoint here. So the difference between the elements is only 0.332 millimeters, so we'll need to add 0.332 millimeters to these segments of ours. Press Ctrl G, move right, 0.332. So look, we add 2 thousandths to 7, so it should be exactly 32, which is already encouraging, basically. Excellent. And we enter the value, let's make it, I don't know, 15, for example. Apply. We get the first template for the bottom row. So everything is as simple and logical as possible, it seems, here for us. Press Ctrl G and do more or less the same thing upwards. But there's a small catch. Since this entire assembled structure here will repeat, we don't want that. We need to offset it. We're moving it up. Let's move it up exactly 15. Set the element to 1. And just simply slide it to the side. So to check its, well, let's say compatibility within these segments, how well it actually fits in here. And again, the distance, this I gather is too tight here. So it should be from the edge point to the edge point 0.332 in height. Our value here is noticeably higher, as you can see in this case. Although visually, it seems like the value is lower. Once more, 0. Okay, 0.698. Let's check here. So we already have a bit of a mismatch here. But a mismatch can happen for many reasons. Now we need to check all our elements, all the segments we have here. Maybe it matches somewhere. This is the first time I'm making such a slightly complicated layout with this, let's say, arrangement of segments. So maybe I'm making a tiny mistake somewhere, but we'll see how it goes. Let's try to make it 332. Just add it, for example, accordingly to the edge point. You might want to make sure it's placed right at the edge. And here we'll also bring our whole element to the edge point while holding the control button. How relevant this is, who knows? Because there's a slight nuance again. Look, we have a segment at an angle. Here, everything is also at an angle, while here it's almost parallel. Whether it's right or wrong, who knows? So I think it shouldn't really match these angles, so it makes sense, to do another interesting measurement. We'll carry it out now too. Rotate it to the angle we have set here. That was 350 degrees. Then basically align our segment to the plane. And somehow, miraculously, set all of this here. Okay, just a moment to take its measurement. Measurement, measurement, measurement. Let's make it even simpler, okay? Control Z, Control Z. Let's set the width. Wait, stop. Control Z. Let's just undo everything. Because there, like that. And just for the sake of interest, let's do one simple test. Our distance there was equal to 0, 0, I think. It was like this. 0.668. 668. Click apply. Drag it over here. Rotate it accordingly to our 350 degrees. Apply. And you can see that's not enough here. So our top part, well, looking at it logically, it's located too close. I mean, there's about a millimeter there. Let's set the value here to exactly 1 millimeter. Rotate it to 350 degrees again. Yeah, we're missing SolidWorks here to actually take a measurement. So there's about 1.5 millimeters distance between one element and the other. So, well, the simplest logic then is set the value for the height to exactly 1 millimeter, and we just raise our segment by exactly 1 millimeter. All set. So basically, more or less, we've created the necessary distance here. Now, all that's left is to repeat all these segments up to a certain value that we'll need when forming, the sketch. So again, moving up, 30, 31, let's check. Apply, and everything's already gone haywire. I mean, there should be an offset, not just up, but there should also be an offset to the right. Control Z. Accordingly, we'll do an upward offset like we did. The Y value is 31. And well, let's check the offset here now, by trial and error. Apply. 2. 2 is too little. Control Z. 4. Well, 4 is more or less, but judging by this parallel happening here, it's also a bit too little. You can also check it basically by making some kind of small element like this and, well, running it through. I realize that for professionals, this video will be a bit rough, but for beginners, I think it's just right. Okay, well, let's not make the offset value 4, let's make the offset value 6. Apply. There, great, everything looks good. Control Z, and accordingly, now we set the number of elements to 15. Apply. We get the grid we need, which is tiled with all these elements. Actually, this will be our template. Press Control G, grouped it, moved it aside, drag over the same template, right-click to copy it, and accordingly, shrink it to the size we need. I mean, well, I'm talking about our token again. And again, you can use the segment that was created earlier as a guide, which is right here. The next steps are also as simple as possible. So we grab our entire tag and drag it over to this part. You can copy it or just leave it, it doesn't matter, whatever works for you. I'll copy it just in case. If these segments look good to me here in terms of background, size, and dimensions, then that's it. Now select the inner part and use Shift to select our outline. And then click on Cut. And here, I'll move everything else aside, and we're left with our segment cut out by our tag. Again, we need to be clear about the overlapping outlines. To prevent this, we'll create an inner outline of 0.1 millimeters. We'll do the same trimming. So select our outline, right-click, and choose Break Curve Apart. Select the outline again, then use Shift to select the background and trim it. Delete the extra background and this outline. This gives us an offset of exactly 0.1 millimeters. So this won't interfere with engraving this shape later, avoiding any issues with the fill or anything else. We'll add the other elements separately now, except for the bottom number of the tag itself. But overall, it should turn out quite well. Okay, our next step. We have a template, the sword for engraving. Here, well, I don't like these cells being so large, even though I made them smaller. Let's do the same outlining with a 0.1 inward offset. Let's see how that looks. Too small. Control Z. Let's try 0.05 of a millimeter. Do the same thing, clicking ORD. Well, that's not bad either. So you could use either option. Again, look at this interesting situation. For some reason, not all the cells are showing up like this, which is a bit annoying. I think the minimum you can do is 25 thousandths, if I'm not mistaken. Same story. I can't say what the reason is, but there's definitely a reason for it. Okay, let's not mess with this nonsense, because I won't figure out the cause right now anyway. Let's ungroup everything in these elements and combine them. Let's try the same outlining test with the combined objects. Still the same error, so that option doesn't work. Let's just leave it as is. Break curve apart in Control G. Just so you know, we specifically need groups of objects. I also like to always make copies of objects, so we're only editing the copies. We'll keep the original at the top just in case. For this segment we have here, what's the first thing we do? A text file. We have an editable text file. Just copy it down to add the number there. Next, the sword must also be a group of objects. Definitely not a curve, not a combined object. With the sword, we'll do it simpler. Select the segment, go to alignment, align horizontally and vertically, and then just drag it while holding the control key to the required position on our tag. So it's done. Leave it for now. Do the same with Armed Forces of Russia, so you can set it manually however you like or however it's convenient, or make even offsets for the top and bottom here accordingly. There, and we do exactly the same thing with our tag number as well. But for the tag number, after you enter the number right here in this field, we'll go ahead and add it directly, just as before. Well, its distribution here will actually be based on the top inscription, just like we discussed earlier. So once again, after entering the tag number, it will be assigned according to the top inscription shown here. For the top inscription, we consider the right and left segments, taking our eyelet into account. Now, for the next steps, well, let me show you on a copy of the objects again, and then I'll do the same with the number on the original. Copy it. The most ideal way, of course, is to make object group 1, object group 2, and object group 3 Control-G. We make a cutout of 0.1 millimeters, that is, we add an external contour of 0.1 millimeters. Right-click to break the contour part. Select this contour, use Shift to select the internal elements, our segments here, and just do a trim. There, it's done. We delete this outer border. We don't need it anymore. And now we'll have two groups of objects. A group of objects for the internal elements, so let me press delete, for this part, and a group of objects for the external elements for their engraving and filling. Control D, done. So a simple layout like this can be put together basically on the fly, without much effort or overthinking. It's a layout accessible to everyone. If you're interested in laser equipment or training materials, reach out. Numbers are in the description. Wish you all the best, lots of cash, and bye everyone.